This conference will now be recorded.
Okay,
So this
let's get
recorded
started.
sessions will be shared, right,
Hmm?
sir?
Hmm?
This recorded sessions will be shared, right?
I started, yes, recording. You will get the recording after the session.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to give you the background of this history of this product. Okay,
Okay,
this product started when? In the year 1994,
okay,
and the name of this product was SMS, System Management Server. Okay, that's the first name of this product. So 1994 we had this SMS 1.0, then 1999 we have SMS 2.0, then SMS 2003. Then they changed the name from SMS to
SCCM.
SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager. This is the second name of this product. Okay,
Okay,
SCCM 2007, then SCCM 2012, SCCM 1511. These are the versions released till 2015. Then these three versions released in the year 2016. Okay, these
okay,
three versions released in the year 2017. These three
okay,
versions released in the year 2018. These three versions released in the year 2019. But in 19 October, they changed the name again from SCCM to MECM,
and recent,
Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. These three versions released in the year 2021. I mean 2020. These three
okay,
versions released in the year 2021. And this year, they have released two versions so far. Okay, MECM 2203, and the latest and greatest version is MECM 2207, which is
okay,
released in the month of July
okay,
2022. Got it?
yes,
So this is the latest and greatest version of SCCM at the moment.
okay,
So we have these versions released by Microsoft. Now we will discuss about these sites today. There are
okay,
three sites: central administration site, primary site, and secondary site. These are the three site servers. Okay, the central,
okay,
then primary, and then secondary. Now central administration site needs what? Database.
okay,
Primary site also needs
database.
database, and secondary also needs database. Okay.
Okay,
Now central administration site is an optional site. Okay, you may or
okay,
may not have this one. Primary
okay,
site is what? It's a mandatory one. Okay, and secondary site is optional. You may or may not have this one. Got it?
okay. So may or may not have means it depends on the licenses or
No, depends on the organizational geographical expansion. Suppose if organization is a small organization, then we will go with only one single primary site server.
okay,
If it is a medium size organization, then we will go with primary plus secondary. And if it's a big organization, then we will go with central administration site server plus primary plus secondary. Got it?
yeah, I see.
I will explain that to you later on. For now, you understand that this is an optional, this one is mandatory, and this one is optional. Now, how many devices can you manage within one central administration site hierarchy? Is 825,000. Got it?
Okay,
In one primary site server, you can have maximum 175,000. And in one secondary site, you can have maximum 15,000. Got it?
okay,
So we have three types of sites in SCCM: central, primary,
prime.
and secondary.
Okay,
Central needs database, primary needs database, and secondary also needs database. This one is optional, this one is mandatory, and this one is optional. You can maximum manage 825,000 in one central administration site hierarchy, and 175,000 in one primary site hierarchy, and 15,000 in secondary site hierarchy. Got it?
Yes.
Now we will discuss about central administration site in great details now. So if you would like to make a note of it, you can. So now, point number one, it is an optional site server. Central is what? Optional.
Optional.
Why optional? Because it is not, you will not find central administration site in all the organization. Very rarely you will see this site server in any organization. If the organization is very big, right?
Yes, at that time
Generally we install central administration site when the organization is very big. Why? Because central administration site is needed when you have more than one primary site server. When you have more than
one primary site.
So for example, you have primary site 1 and primary site 2.
Okay.
So, and both will have database, right?
Yes.
Both will have database to store the data. For example, this one is, managing 150,000 devices. Okay, and this one is managing another like 100,000 devices. So total, how many devices are there? 250,000 devices, right?
Yes.
So one primary site, it cannot manage all the devices because one primary site can manage up to 175,000. So that is the reason we need help of another primary site. The moment you have another primary site, you can install CAS. And both will report to CAS. And central will also have database. Central will have database, right? And the data will replicate from primary site database to the central. Both will send the data to the central administration site database. Clear?
Yeah, clear.
Now understand this again. This is an optional site server, because if you just have one single primary site, let's say one single primary site, then you don't need a CAS. Okay?
Yes.
You don't need CAS. CAS is needed when you have more than one primary site. Got it?
Yes.
So it sits on the top of the hierarchy. As you see, it is always on the top. Central will be on the top, then you have primary, then secondary. It manages primary site server. Basically, the role of this is to manage primary site, nothing else. It does what? Primary site management. Got it?
Yeah.
It will manage primary site. It will not manage devices. It will not manage secondary site. It will have no connection with the devices. It will have no connection with the secondary site server. It is just to manage primary site server. Okay? It is needed when you have more than one primary site.
Yeah.
Then it needs data SQL server to store the data. You see, SQL server store the data. It collects data from where? From primary site database. Primary site database is gonna send the data. As you see, primary sites is gonna send the data to central. It does not interact with client machine and does not interact with secondary site. For example, you have thousands and thousands of client machines. Let's say there are 10,000 client machines. Those machines will not be talking to central. Okay? Clear?
Yeah. So that means only the DB will be syncing to the central server.
Primary site database will be syncing to the
primary
database.
database.
Yes. Management of device management will be done by primary site server. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it does not process client data. It does not support client assignment. How many client you can have in one central administration site hierarchy? 825,000 client machine can be there in one central administration site hierarchy. Total number of primary site you can, how many primary site you can have in one central administration site hierarchy? In one central administration site hierarchy, you can have maximum 25 child primary site. For example, you have CAS, you can have P1, then P2, then P3. It can go up to P25. Okay, maximum 25 child primary site you can add in one central administration site server. And where will you install this? You can install this on Windows Server 2012 or greater.
Yeah.
like 2012 R2, 2016, 2019, 2022 now, right?
Yeah.
Clear? Central administration site server.
Yeah. Yes. 1 minute. I'm just writing the notes.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay.
Yeah.
You can hear me properly?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
So central administration site is done. Now we will talk about primary site server. Primary is the main site in SCCM. Without primary, you cannot manage devices because everything we do through primary site server. Okay. So primary is a mandatory site.
Yeah.
It's a mandatory site. Actually, the spelling is incorrect. It's a mandatory site. Okay. It cannot be a child of another primary site server. That means primary and primary both will be on the same level, right?
Yes.
Okay. Both are on the same level. Okay. Then it manages client in well-connected network. Now I'll give you one example. Where are you located?
Riyadh.
Hmm?
Riyadh.
Riyadh. Okay, so what is the name of the company?
Al Nafida.
Okay, Al Nafida. For example, you have an office in Riyadh, right? In Riyadh,
Yeah.
you have your office called Al Nafida. Let's say the office is located in Riyadh, right?
Yeah.
Now there are like in that Al Nafida uh, uh, location, in that office. For example, that is the headquarter. Okay,
Okay.
headquarter. For example, there are multiple floors. You have taken a building, and in each floor, 10,000 devices are there. For example, so let's say total 10,000 computers are there in that building. All of them are connected to the same network.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is a network. Now, who will manage these 10,000 devices? We will install one single primary site server, and that is going to manage these
Manage all
10,000
this.
devices,
Yes.
right? Now,
Yeah.
10,000 devices are being managed by primary site server in headquarter. Because why? Because all of them are on the same network. Okay, that means the network connectivity is good, right, in that location.
Yes. Yes.
Now, suppose you have another office in Mumbai. That's a branch office.
Yeah.
Let's say there are 2,000 devices in Mumbai. So it is not possible from Riyadh to manage these 2,000 devices. Why? Because the network is not as good as Riyadh, right? It is on
Yes.
the WAN network. It's not on the LAN network.
Land.
So in order to manage these devices, because we have to manage these 2,000 devices as well, so we need a
Yes.
good network. So we will do what? We will install one secondary site server here in Mumbai, and that will manage all the devices here in Mumbai, and it will fetch all the policies and contents from the primary site server. So secondary can exist only when you have a primary site server. Secondary is for branch offices. Got it?
Yeah.
So what does it say? It manages clients in well-connected network. It manages secondary site as well. So it manages these 10,000 devices, plus it is managing the devices in the secondary site in other location. For example, you have another location called Hyderabad,
Yeah.
and there are 2,000 devices here. Who will manage the devices? You will install another secondary site here.
Secondary, sir. Yeah.
So secondary will be taking all the policies and contents from primary and applying the policies and contents here in Hyderabad. So it primary site is managing these 10,000 devices plus secondary site. Got it?
Yeah.
Primary site needs database to store the data,
Data.
As you see, primary requires SQL Server database, and it collects data from where? From the client machine. You see, in Riyadh, it is gonna collect the data from 10,000 machines from Riyadh, right?
Yes.
And it is gonna store the data in the database. But what about the Mumbai computers? So secondary site is collecting data from Mumbai computers. It is storing the data in the database, secondary database.
Yeah.
So Mumbai, 2,000 devices, right?
Yeah.
Another like Hyderabad, you have
Another DB.
another secondary site, and secondary site has
Yes.
another database, 2,000 devices in Hyderabad. So this secondary site is collecting data from, so this secondary site is sending the data to secondary, and secondary is storing the data in the database. This
Yeah.
2,000 devices sending the data to secondary, secondary is storing the data in the database. Now these secondary site, it's gonna store the data, I mean replicate the data to the primary database. Got it?
Okay.
Clear or not?
Yeah. So my concern is how it will synchronize. It's going to use the same DB or
Same DB. Secondary will be storing the same primary side DB. Okay.
okay. Okay.
Primary side DB will be the central location. Okay.
Got it.
So secondary side, it collects, what does it say? Collects data from client computers and secondary side servers, and replicates its data to central. Now, in case if central is there, let's say central is also there, then it is going to replicate here. This point is valid only when the central is there. If the central is not there, then this point is not valid. Okay.
Okay.
Now support client assignment. Yes, it the clients are assigned to primary. Let's say the Riyadh 10,000 machines are there, right? So
Yeah.
primary, all of them will be assigned to the primary side server, right?
Yeah.
Supports how many client computers? Total 175,000. So this number is total from Riyadh, from Mumbai, from Chennai. In total, if you combine them
Yeah.
together, then the devices which are located in branch office plus, so the devices which are in headquarter plus
Headquarter
branch offices. Okay.
branches.
Okay, whatever the branches you
Yeah.
have, so you will have to add the total number of devices, and then that should be less than, how much?
The
That should be less than 175,000 client machines. Got it?
yeah.
How many secondary site server can a primary have? Primary site can have maximum 250 secondary site. So maximum, how many?
Okay.
250. So let's say
200.
secondary 1, then secondary 2, then secondary 3. It can go up to secondary 250.
Yeah.
Okay. And where will you install the the primary site? On Windows Server 2012 or greater.
Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
No question? All clear?
Yeah. Clear here.
Now secondary, this is the last site in SCCM. Secondary is for branch offices. It is an optional site. That is the reason it is now. If you don't have branch office, then you don't install it, right?
Yeah.
Got it?
So,
It
but
cannot
some
exist with a
yeah, some customers they'll tell that our van is fine. I mean, the data or the van, it's fine. Okay. So they'll say no need to create a one more secondary
right,
site. Can we manage
right,
it from primary site or not?
right. Yes, if the network is good, then we don't need secondary. Secondary is needed only
Yes.
to control the network bandwidth. As you see, point number 4, what does it say? To control network bandwidth.
Network bandwidth. Yeah.
So point number 1 is what? It's an optional site server.
Fine.
Point number 2, it cannot exist without a primary site server.
Primary.
Point
Yeah.
number 3, it is needed to manage computers in remote location. It is needed to manage computer in remote location to control the network bandwidth. Okay. So
Yeah.
it requires SQL Express or SQL Server database to store the data. Now, secondary can store the data either SQL Express or SQL Server database. Okay. Generally, we go with SQL Express. Why?
It's a free edition.
Right, it's free of cost. So generally we go with this one, SQL Express, to store the data.
Yeah.
But this secondary has that option. Central, you cannot use SQL Express. For primary, you cannot use SQL Express, but for secondary, you have both the options. So
Okay.
secondary is needed for branch office computers. It collects data from where? From client machines. Let's say secondary is there in Mumbai. So there are 2000 devices in Mumbai, right?
Yes.
So it is going to collect the inventory of those 2000 devices and store them in the database. And finally, it is going to send that data in the primary database. Okay.
Yeah.
So primary database, primary will be storing the data, plus it will be taking the data from secondary and putting it together.
Yeah.
Okay. It replicates collected data from primary side database. Okay.
Yeah.
It supports 15,000 client machines. So in branch office, you can go with secondary site, and that will support up to 15,000 machines. Okay.
Yeah.
It does not interact with CAS. Suppose CAS is right here. So CAS will always be talking to primary. CAS will have no connection with the devices, no connection with the secondary. It will not be talking to CAS. Okay.
Yeah.
And it can be installed on Windows Server 2012 or greater.
Okay.
Understood?
Yes.
So we have 3 sites in SCCM. We have talked about these 3 sites. So now if the organization is small size organization, for example, like this, if the organization is small, then let's say that Houston is a location where 20,000 devices is there. So you will need what? One secondary site, and that will manage all the devices in Houston. Okay.
Okay.
One secondary site will be managing all the devices in Houston. So this one is for small size company. Let's say 20,000 devices. So one primary site, sorry, not secondary. Primary will be managing.
I am confused now.
Sorry. Yeah,
It's a
sorry.
primary site, so you are dealing directly.
Yeah, sorry. It is
Okay.
a primary site. Without primary, secondary cannot exist. You can't install secondary directly. There is no option to create secondary without primary. Okay. Sorry, I mistakenly
No
said
problem.
that.
No problem.
So one primary site will be managing the devices in Houston. Okay. Now suppose the devices are located in branch offices as well. Let's say this is a different company and medium sized organization, or the same company and you have set up the branch offices in Seattle and Boston. Let's say Seattle, 20,000 devices in Houston. Who will be managing? The primary. Primary is managing these 20,000 devices. Now Seattle has, let's say, 2,000 devices and Boston has 5,000 devices. So we will have secondary here. We will manage and secondary. So my secondary will not have its own policy. Secondary will always take the policy from primary and then apply to the devices in Seattle and Boston. Okay.
Yes.
Now this is the third organization deployment, third kind of deployment in organization, big organization. For example, if you have big number, I mean more than 100,000 or 200,000 devices all over the globe to manage. So one primary cannot handle all the devices. You will have to have more than one primary. Let's say primary 1 will be managing all the devices in Houston. Primary 2 will be managing all the devices in Europe region. Okay. Primary 3 will be managing all the devices in Asia Pacific region. Okay. And when you have more than one primary, then you can install a CAS.
Yeah.
And all the primary will report to CAS like this. Okay. This kind of deployment, we do it in big organization like Accenture, Deloitte, IBM. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is the typical one. Generally, we go with this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Generally, we have this kind of architecture. So we have a primary site server in headquarter, let's say New York, and 10,000 devices are there. So one primary will be managing these 10,000 devices, and it will collect the data and put the information in the database. Now, what about the devices in Mumbai, London, and Paris? So Mumbai has 2,000 devices. It is gonna be managed by secondary site server, and it is gonna store the data in the database of these Mumbai 2,000 devices. same it will happen like here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the data whatever the data you have, the 3 databases are there. So it is gonna replicate the data here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got it.
So, and the data replication happens from downward to upward. So whatever the information the secondary collected, it is going to pass on to primary.
Primary.
Whatever the information primary collected, it's going to pass on to central. Okay.
Yeah.
So we will do we will discuss about site roles tomorrow. What are
Okay.
these site roles, like management point, distribution point, software update point? So tomorrow we will discuss about this, and then we will also do this one, the lab setup. Okay.
Okay.
We'll start doing the lab setup. I'll send you the link and all. You can download those things. I'll do the lab setup. Okay.
No problem.
Any question before we wrap it up today?
No, sir. This is fine for us.
Okay. Thank you. We'll meet
Yeah.
tomorrow. Okay.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Thank
So
you. Bye
tomorrow
now.
at the same time, sir?
Same time.
Okay, sir. Okay. No problem.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Salam.